Okay, so at first we'll start. I think I'll close this as well, whichever is not required. Okay, so I've just named as student management project. Okay, the very first thing what we can do, we'll create a file, how it is going to be. Let's call this as a web development project for student management. What are we gonna do? Basically, the objective, develop a web application using, as of now, what we choose is PHP, MySQL, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Basic tech stack, technology stack for managing the students of, say, probably a school or college, any academic institute. Okay, this is the overall objective. We will develop a web application using PHP, MySQL. So, what is the technology stack? Probably we can even remove this. Develop a web application for managing the students of a school or college. So what would be the technology stack? What we'll be using? So basically PHP is a server-side programming language. Okay. Then basically MySQL is a database. Server-side. It's also server-side. We use it for permanent storage. Okay. This is also, I'll tell you, for the computation or processing of the logic, we can simply say. And HTML is a hypertext markup language used for client side or browser, UI we say. CSS, I will tell you everything. Cascading style sheet, that is for styling the web pages. This is again on the client side. UI means user interface, which the user will typically use it to interact with user interface, right? And JavaScript. This would be more than sufficient to start with. So this is a client side scripting language that is on the browser, on the UI itself, for validation. I'll tell you what exactly. It might make sense a little later when we go along. So this is what are going to be a technology stack. When I say tech stack, that means technology stack. What are we going to use? Maybe we will also discuss something as a prerequisites. What is a prerequisite we may need? The basic computer proficiency or knowledge and client server concepts. This is sufficient, but we can touch base on this as well, client server, when we go on. Okay, so this is what we're gonna touch base. So ultimately, when we say, okay, probably a prerequisite will take client server. What is that? It is. So client and server is a very important terminology whenever you use any application. When we speak about application, it's a very important terminology. So what is a client? There are two different systems ultimately, okay, and server. So let's assume I have a machine here. Okay, it's stuck. So I have a machine, client and server. Basically, there are two entities. Okay, I think it got stuck. Okay, perfect. Let's that here. Okay, okay. So this is a client, and say for example this is a server. Just imagine there are two systems basically. Okay, so recording is on. Okay, so what is happening? Let's, if you look at it. Okay, let's say this guy and this guy both have to talk. It's a very basic terminology I'm saying. So assume, probably I'll reduce this. Okay, this guy sends a request, so this is called a request, and this guy sends a response at the minimum. So response, this is the overall when we say basic client server architecture. Okay, this is a concept in the computer science, client server architecture, where there are two entities. This guy is basically the client, can be two things basically, like what I can say here. Typically that is a guy. Whom do you do? In this case it is a human being, and this could be another machine, can be any machine. So this is, say for example, user, person, whoever it is, an individual human being. This could be a machine. Let's say for example any other machine, right? Basically there are two types of clients. So the one, what do you mean by client, what do you mean by server? Client is the one who is in need of a data, it needs something. When we say server, where have you come across the term server in real time? Server, hotel. So what does he do? A server, what does he do? He gives the food. He gives the food. What we need in a hotel, what we need? Food. The server is the person who collects the food and gives it, who gives you the food. So likewise, the client will make a request. So if you look at this as well, so this guy makes a request first, and the server gives a response. This is the second. Okay, that's all. That's all about we have. It's as simple as that. Client and server. This is one entity, that's another entity, where this guy needs data, this guy has data. So we can also say that this guy needs some data, this guy has some data as of now. Of course there are certain extension to it. The server can have the data on its own, or it can get it from other person, similar to hotel server. A server does not cook the food on its own and he gives the food. Server knows how to get the data, how to give the food, that's all. So this is what when we say a client server architecture. Okay, so a client is the one who needs data, server is the one who provides the data. Obviously directly or indirectly. What do you mean when we say directly or indirectly? Indirectly means he knows how to give the data. So precisely he knows how to get the data or from whom, whatever. But this guy, for this client, he is a server. That's all. Okay. It's a very basic essential component of any application when we work, web application or any other application, whatever we'll be writing. That's an essential understanding of this. Okay. Understood? So I would just save this here. Let me put it here. Projects. Client server. Simple client server or very basic client server architecture. Okay. This is how it's all about. So in essence, what is going to be our client? What is going to be our text? Let's assume I have just saved this as an MD file, .md file, right? So here is a browser, and I say this user or agent, this machine, this can also browser can also be a client. Let's assume in terms of our what I want to say, we browse a web application, right? We are browsing our web application. Generally, all of us are good at using our Gmail, Yahoo, Facebook, whatever we do. So what do we do typically in our yes? So what happens? Let's take an example of a real-time example, like Google search. Let's say, for example, Google search, a real-time example. This is a perfect example of a web application. This itself is a web application. What do we do? So at first, here I draw the same picture, like a client, and as always, this is a server. Client and server, and probably like if you are operating it, you are here, because basically Google search a human will do, right? Even a machine also can do, but most likely we talk about a human being. So there is a user, let's say for example, he is Mr. Arun. There's a person. He wants to make a request and response. So what does he do? He clicks on this. As always, nothing special, but we have the same stuff. Likewise, so here this is Arun. What is the server? Google.com. He is a server. We know that's a server we are hitting. Google.com. And this guy is okay. We know that this guy is a user. Who is operating, right? So let's say user or client, basically the one who operates. But what does he use here? Within this client machine, he would use a tool. What is the tool called? Browse. Exactly. So he uses something here. probably this tool, whatever we say is using, this would be exactly, tool is a browser. It can be anything, IE, Firefox, whatever, etc. He uses a tool and makes a request. He is searching for something, say web development, client server, etc. So the guy makes a request. The server google.com. Where does he make? Browser. Browser is a tool in which he is making a request. And the server, actually google.com, gets you the data what the client is interested in. Exactly. So request and response, as always, the same number. So number one, he makes a request with the search data. We also need to provide what is the searching for, right? So we can say he is actually searching for search equal to, let's say for example, PHP. That's what he is searching. What this guy returns, gives back in the other way around. So he has to search. So I'll also make it a little bit better here. What do we do at the outset when we look at it, real-time example? We see that using a client or tool, browser, using a tool called browser, this user is searching for something called PHP, and this guy server returns the data back. We say, let's assume this is a Google Chrome browser. I type something called PHP, or even you understand google.co.in. This itself is a request. You gave it, it came. I am searching for the term. What happens? You get something back. So I make a request and I got the results back. That's a response. This response, that's what it contains. What does it contain actually? The response links or websites containing the term PHP. Right? Potentially that's what. Okay, this is how it is. But typically this is how we think we do. But where does a google.com, it has to store the data somewhere. That's what I'm trying to say, just to give an overall idea. So this guy cannot have everything on its own. He doesn't have a capacity. So generally what happens in real time, the data, whatever we are, it doesn't know who will ask what, right? Google is a common search engine. You can search for PHP. I can search for Java. Other person can search for CSS, HTML. Not just this cricket match, weather, anything and everything we can search. But this guy cannot store it. It is also a capacity limitation. So what this will have? Where is this image for database? Okay. Let's assume, or we can type this way. Okay. So this is how we generally represent a database. And ellipses, we typically use this. Okay, great. Likewise, we draw one here. This is how we represent the database. Okay. This is a symbol that indicates that a cylindrical shape that indicates it's a database. It's a storage drum. Storage drum. So basically, okay. So what do we do? Ideally, this is nothing but a database. Database, we know example, right? Typical example of a database can be potentially we have Oracle. Let's assume MySQL first to start. MySQL, Oracle, etc. There are so many databases. Okay, so like hotel, we say Sarana Bhavan, Vasanta Bhavan, right? Or Pizza Hut, Domino. Likewise, there are multiple databases available. So what does a database do typically? It stores the data. That's a whole. How when we say client has the data, client needs the data, server has the data, database stores the data. Its only purpose is to store it. It's something similar to a water drum. What does a drum do? What does a drum do? It stores something. Whatever you put it stores. Exactly similar to that. That's the data. So what this guy indeed will do, typically the server, because it cannot store everything in its own. The server can do two things. What does it do typically? I'm just saying at the end, high level. This guy has to look at two things. What does it typically potentially do? The server's job, server's life, right? If you look at it, server's life. Just take an example. In a hotel example, what does a server do? He does two things. First, he will get the order from the guest or customer who is sitting in the hotel, and then he'll go and inform the kitchen cook, and when the food is ready, he gets back. Exactly here as well. The server's life is first one, receive request. Receive request, and then what exactly I would say, it search for data or prepare data or response. It's the other way around, right? Third thing is serve data or response. What does it do? What do you say when you say prepare? Prepare data means it is collecting, it is doing something, it is working on. Okay, you want something? Okay, probably somebody comes and orders for 2 idli. Okay, you want 2 idlis? Wait for 2 minutes, I'll come back. Likewise, this guy, what does he do, server? What does this guy do? This guy indeed goes here and then collects the data from this guy. Okay, so this indeed adds an additional step. And here, okay, so this is 1 and 2 we said, but typically that is not that at all. So what happens is that this step would be, I would erase it. This is for the simplest sake. Okay, in a little realistic terms, this is 2. This will be 2. And the database, whatever it needs, it can be, when I'm saying simply database, it can be any storage, any place where it can look for data. Sometimes it's a database, sometimes it can be a file system, hard drive, anything. Just for an example, I'm saying, right? So likewise, this guy indeed, this will be 3. You get the flow, right? This will be 3, and this will be the 4. Okay, this is the holistic life cycle of file. Okay, I think it got saved. I don't know. Okay, I'm talking in terms of google.com. If it is any other server, it can vary. So in terms of google.com, first the client comes, makes a request, search called PHP. Then google.com server, which is receiving the request, will go and search the database. So typically what we can say in this entire, what can I say? This one, right? This will be a complete entity called server. This whole thing is the server environment. Okay. So when we say, because the whole thing is server, this is a client. So the server, whether it is in the same machine or different machine, that's a different ball. That's not a question here. This is also a server side because server is a mediator here. So this guy knows, it goes and asks further. Similar to server in the hotel, this is a client. So this is a kitchen room where the food is prepared or food is stored, whatever. So this guy will go and ask, hey, I need some data. So this guy gives back, and the exact thing, he can do something else. Probably, he can serve it, add some what you call toppings or anything. He can make something optionally and then gives the data. But typically 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the overall client server architecture. This is why I'm saying this is because this is very, very, very essential when it comes to the basics of a web application. When you say any application, need not be web, any application, this is what it happens. Okay. This is fine. So that's how a web application works. So most important thing, probably what we should do, one more thing I can even write is the protocol. Let's not go any deeper. I'll just tell what is that. So a protocol is actually an agreement between the two parties engaged or involved in a transaction or communication. What is the transaction they are involved now? What are the two parties here? Exactly. Client and server are the two parties. So an agreement. So two parties are nothing but client and server. And what is the transaction here? Data exchange. When we say it's a data exchange, any data they want to exchange. Let's come back here. In this case, what is the data being exchanged? Is searching. Search the keyword and the data should come. So typically, what the handshake is something like it is also called as a handshake. The protocol is used before we engage. Let's assume server goes in a hotel restaurant. So what does the customer does it first? Before he starts ordering the food, what does he do? Exactly. In the menu card, what he looks for? One, the number of items, what I get it, right? Second thing? Exactly. Why? Let's look for the available dishes and price for each, with which he will decide whether he can continue or he can make an order or not, right? Also probably we just say price, but in addition what we can say, the mode of payment now, cash, card, etc., right? Maybe he may not have the cash payment, etc. So he will ensure that whether it is convenient for me to start with the transaction. So that is how this is actually called as a handshake. We say this is called a handshake, right? Protocol and handshake. What do you do handshake? When you two people meet for the first time, they do handshake. They introduce themselves, with which they say, I am from so and so, I belong to this place, I do this. Same way other person also says, they both know about something about each other. So that is what handshake. Essential first-hand information between the two parties, right? So this is what handshake is all about, right? Similar to the way two people shake their hands when they meet for the first time. Anytime they meet, they do the handshaking, they introduce themselves, right? What does this protocol basically says? This protocol governs. An agreement means what do they agree upon? Something similar to this example. Customer, before he ordering, he understand, hey, can I have idli, can I have pasta, pizza, it is available, how long will it take? If he says 30 minutes, the customer can wait, or he is hungry, immediately has to go, then he will not choose that item. And do I have a Sodexo card? Do you have a credit card? Do you have a coupon offer? Everything is suitable for him, then the customer will order. If not, he will better get out of the hotel and look for another hotel, right? Something similar to that. Here, what we say, client and server, they both will agree upon. I am operating on this Windows machine. I am responsible. We can talk more about this when we go further in the application development. I'm just giving a bit of a theory first to understand. So the protocol says what exactly I'm here for, what I can understand. So this guy says the client browser, I can show you here. We make a request here. So this is a client. He makes a request to google.co.in, google.server. So to the server it says, I'll show you how exactly it happens. There is something called F12 developer tools. Just imagine there is a network tab. I reload the page here. See here. So these many things I'm actually getting. This is the search. So this is the request header. This is being passed. So this is all we will understand. Gradually we'll see what is that. This is nothing but the client. Client is nothing but the browser. When you say client, I'm interchangeably using it. It need not be necessarily I am operating. It need not be necessarily meaning that I am a human. The client means a tool also, because the tool is operated by the same person. So these both are called as client. We interchangeably use it. The client means sometimes it's a tool, sometimes the end user, right? But simply we say client. The client is a browser. When it's making a request, it says that I am interested. I'm making a request. I need to get the data, and this is my address. This and all, they are exchanging it. So what does it got back as a response? It says that, okay, these are all the things I'm getting, the data, text.html. I give the content type is HTML data. This is what I'm sending you back. Only then these two people, okay, you are sending an HTML. This guy knows, the client knows, the browser. It will prepare the HTML data. You see here something called bold text. This is the HTML hypertext markup language. It is something like the text is prepared in a better way. It's a visual aesthetics, visual styling, right? So this guy understands, okay, it's HTML data. Something comes in bold or etc. I will prepare it. This is a hypertext link. So I will make it accordingly. The way in which the data to be presented. Probably, as I said, in the hotel example as well as server, when he gets the data, this guy sometimes, what if it is a parcel? He needs to make a wrapper, right? Veg or non-veg, whatever it is. And then he can insert a spoon, or he can insert a ketchup if it's a noodle, Chinese items. So all that is not required to be done by the kitchen, the actual data. This guy is doing the data for the presentation. Before he presents to the client, he'll do that. This is what is happening. Just for an example, client and server. There's a client server architecture. We'll talk about a bit of HTML. I'll come back to that as well. This is clear? So this is for a basic client server architecture. What we need, just a quick recap. We have two entities, client and server. Client is the one who needs the data, right? Maybe we can write it. This guy needs data. This guy knows how to get the data. Why? Why I say knows? Not directly has. Sometimes he can possibly have on its own. Otherwise, this guy has to get it from somebody else. Another example, similarly, the hotel server is the best example. Server is a person standing in front to receive the customers. He doesn't have the food. He doesn't prepare the food on his own, right? That's the example. So he knows how to get the data. So likewise, client and server. So what is the architecture? First, the client makes a request, and server prepares the data and then gets the response back. This is the overall architecture. In the real-time example, what you have seen in Google search, the client or the user, the tool that we use, a browser, interchangeably we use it, makes a request with a search keyword. The server does not have a data on its own, say google.com. It goes to something called database, which is a permanent storage. Example is MySQL, Oracle, etc. So it gets the data from the server where it has stored, for example, and then it does some preparation and gives the data back. It gets a response back from the database, and possibly it does something extra and gives it back to the actual end customer. That's the overall round trip of a client server. This is a very, 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 very fundamental and basic. But we have so many flavors here. Just to tell you here, in this, say for example, server itself, let's say for example, this is a simple web application flavor. Okay, simple. many flavors. One is web app flavor, right? With the DB, server and DB. Sometimes instead of DB, client server file system. From within file also it can look up, right? Typically the servers also, what kind of servers are there? There are so many servers. Application server, database server, exchange, email exchange server, web server, etc., right? Each server does a separate activity. This example you have seen too. One is google.com, that's the application server. This database you have already seen it, that's a MySQL or Oracle, whatever we have seen just a while ago. This we have seen now. Likewise, there are so many flavors, so many things associated with this. Okay. We have many flavors, many different flavors. Okay, right. So let's assume I have this data in my machine. Probably, and okay, what I said, one more thing. Before the client and server can operate, they have to agree upon how exactly they're gonna get the data. What I am capable to understand, and what data I'm sending you in what format. Similar to how the customer in a hotel will agree before he orders. So we have two things: protocol and handshake. Protocol is nothing but an agreement between the two parties engaged in a transaction. So in a hotel, customer and the hotel management of the server can understand, hey, I'm very hungry. What can I get very quickly? Sir, you get dosa in 10 minutes. Or you get, probably you can wait for another 5 more minutes, I can get you a pasta. And what are the mode of payments? In this case is cash or card, etc. So all these getting adjusted agreed between the client and server, the customer and the server, only then the transaction will begin. So it is very essential that the protocol has to be in place. But in the hotel example, the protocol is very evident. The people will actually speak out. But in the system, as I've shown, it happens behind the scenes, in the backside of it, everything happens. But the tools or devices are programmed to make this happen. You don't get to see in front of your eyes, but behind the scenes they do it, right? Like how you switch on the computer, the operating system comes, it creates so many things, right, behind the scenes. Something like that. These guys are prepared to do these things behind the scenes to keep it ready for you. Let's say, for example, if you go to the hotel, customer server sees you. What does he do? Upon looking at it, immediately he does two things. What does he do? After seeing a customer in a hotel, first he will greet you and welcome you, and then two things he does very importantly. After he greets, the protocol is something like, after he greets, right, what does he do? First he will show you the place to sit, and then ask the cleaner to clean the table, keep a bottle of water, and then give you the menu card. This is a very, very basic essential discipline. So what I can say here, the handshake, the protocol, it's handshake. Server, after seeing a customer in the hotel, he does the following, right? What is that? Greets the customer, shows him the table to sit, asks the cleaner to clean the table if required. If it is already clean, no need. Serves a glass of water for him to drink. It's a what do you call? What do we say? It is what I can say to make them feel better. In Tamil we say virundombal, but what it's hospitality, right? Hospitality, right? And then gives you a menu card. So what I'm saying, does anybody say this to the, do you ask for it? When you go to the hotel, do you ask the customer, hey, you greet me, hey, can you, probably menu card you can give, you can ask for, but most likely these are supposed to be done by the server or the waiter, immediately after seeing the customer, right? Likewise, here, the client and server, the browser, they involve in a transaction. When the moment you initiate a request here, automatically this does behind the scenes. Do I do anything? Did I do anything on my own here? No. But I am showing it because it is available for us to see. It is happening on its own, similar to what the client server does it to the customer. Here, server customer in the sense it's a reverse. But here, customer also, client also initiates it, and the server also sends you this. Okay, I'm giving you the data in HTML, so you do this, you do that, right? So that's a handshake. How do they do the protocol? This is a protocol. What, like a telephone? What do they do? Upon dialing, what do you say first? You say hello. When you say hello, that means what? Other party can understand that. Okay, he is trying to check. It's a usual greeting when you say hello. So that's a understanding, common understanding. Likewise, this is what it is, a protocol, right? Protocol is an agreement. A customer comes, a server will give me a waiter will do all this to me. I don't need to ask him for. And then he'll ask, okay, after the menu card, then you decide. You ask the questions. That's a protocol. This is the handshake. The protocol is here. This is the handshake means at first you do the handshake and then you exchange the information. What do you do? Hey, I'm so and so, Mr. Arun Kumar. I'm Mr. Raghavan. So I'm from Tamil Nadu. I'm from Kerala. Whatever it is. That is how the initiation, here it happens. Hey, I'm looking for this food. Do you have it? What are the mode of payments? Can I get it quickly? Do you have a parcel? Can I have a takeaway? Etc. Etc. That's a protocol. So handshake comes first. Then comes probably a protocol. Probably the handshake also happens by a protocol. The protocol, what we use is there are multiple protocols. The protocols is happen via HTTP, FTP. These are all the protocols. Hypertext transfer protocol, file transfer protocol. What does it say? Something like a grammar to a language. As I said, it's for a web server. I told you, right? For a web server is HTTP. For a file server, it is FTP, file transfer protocol. So it depends on the operation what we do, the protocol will vary. Much similar to when you go to a hotel, what is the protocol? You greet. This is all the protocol, right? Handshake and the protocol. This is all the protocol. What is the protocol? The customer and server has to agree upon about the food and his mode of payment and takeaway or in-person dining, right? He's sitting and eating there itself. This is a protocol. When you go to, let's say for example, a flower shop, where you definitely you cannot eat the flower. Obviously, they'll give the parcel only packed. Or a milk shop, so or something like totally, or you go to a medical shop. So medical shop, you ask for something else. You have this. They'll ask for a doctor's prescription. That's a different protocol. So the place to place the protocol varies, right? If it is for a web application, it's HTTP. If it's for file transfer, it is FTP. Right? It's a web application. So the protocol varies from a place to place. Right? And the handshaking is the initial thing we do. But protocol happens after the handshake. For handshake comes first, ideally. And then there is a protocol. Ideally, that's a reverse order. Okay? Because first you do handshake. When you look at a person, you do the handshake. And then customer will look at it, this, that, whatever we have. Okay? So this is the overall client-server architecture. What happens basically. Fine. Now, let's get into the other basic of probably this is a technology stack, we say protocol, basic prerequisites we are covering, right? Handshake we have covered it. Let's go just to have a touch base of this. What is HTML? What is CSS? Simple example we'll see, right? So this is a README, probably. Okay. So let me open the HTML basics. HTML. So what is HTML? What do you mean by that? When you say the client server example, the client indeed sends some data, asks for some data, server sends some data. But the data is typically there's something called a plain text. What is that? Data can be of different forms. simplest is plain text, meaning what? Without any styles or visual effects, right? It's also called as a raw data. What is raw? Let's say, for example, uncooked vegetable is data, right? It is just a vegetable, right? But when you mix with HTML, when it's HTML plus data, you get a beautified data. What is beautified? Data plus some visual aspects, visual effects. What do you mean by visual effects? You apply some color to it. That just a simplest example is a color, style or color, whatever you take it as. So that way, a dish or food is a cooked vegetable. Basically, it becomes not a food; it's a dish. A cooked vegetable. The cook is processed data. Process. If you have a vegetable, you are cutting it and putting, making it fried or boil it, and then add some salt, masala, etc. That becomes a cooked vegetable. Is a dish. So that's how we should understand. Okay. Let's assume, for example, plain text, right? The raw text. The usual extension, the raw text. Extension will be .txt. That's a basic that indicates text file. In a HTML, what is a file? What is an extension? Basically, a file can have the name and the extension that indicates, file extension indicate what type of data it contains. Let's say, for example, you are the same person. We can also look at in the data. When you say file, is storage. Basically, an entity that has the data in the machine or computer. Let's just take it. Named entity. Okay. Typically, what does it have? Two parts. Name, a meaningful identifier, similar to the people's name, like Arun, Ram, etc. Right? And extension, a small 3-letter word with starting from a dot, right, to indicate what type of data the file can contain. What is the example? A person wearing the formal and shoe goes to office. We understand? Same person wearing jersey and trousers with a sports shoe, for example, goes to gym or playground. We understand that's a kind of what kind of activity that he is carrying out is evident by the attire, the dress that he wears. Similarly, a .txt file indicates the file will contain a raw data, raw text or data. What does it mean? Simple data without any styles. Nothing, just a data. I'll show you an example as well. Other case, .html, just for example, indicates. We can take an example as well. Name.txt. Okay, indicates the file will contain the data with a visual effects. Hypertext markup language. So the example is names.html. Okay, I'll show you the both just for an example. Then I'll explain it later. So this is how it's going to be. So how does the data looks like? Let's say, for example, let's take the file, create the file. So example file. I said names.txt, right? Names.txt. I'm just simply type Arun. I'm even saying names, right? I'll just simply type names. Arun, Balaji, Chandra, Dinesh. Let's say, for example, okay, Raga. We have a data name.txt, names.txt. So when I open this file, I have to open the file in the browser. I am opening it. Where do we have? I think I have it in web. We have students. Okay. Yeah, web dev projects, student management project, names.txt. What do you see in the data? Okay, I think it is opening in a different way. Ideally, it is getting translated. Names.txt. Because I have a plugin here, that's why it is happening. So ideally speaking, when you look for the data, I should turn off the thing basically. Let me open, give me a minute. I will open this in a different browser. Let's say in Edge browser, where I don't have a plugin. I'll open a new window. I open this names.txt. What do you see here? Just the data as what I have typed. You see what you see here, no difference at all. The data is data, not text. The browser indicates, the client indicates it's a text data. I don't need to do anything.
Welcome to the Git Crash course.
So
this course is for complete beginners,
right? But assume I'm gonna prepare HTML. So let's take name.html. I just say name.html. I take the same content, but because it has to be something different, right? Let's assume I go look for this data, name.html. Even now, but you see there something different. It is not the same what I have done without doing anything. I have not done anything. But the file is, how do you see the data? What is the difference? Structurally, what do you see the difference? It is one by one line. Each has what I have typed. But here what happens? It is all in one line, only one single line. There itself indicates that the type of a data is given to understanding of browser, that the way in which you prepare the data should be varying. Similar to, like as I said, the server. If it is for a Chinese item, most likely he will put a ketchup on top of the box and a spoon and then he wrap it. Something like that. So the file extension matters a lot, right? So without what I should do, first case, if I need to bring it to the next line, in HTML.html, I need to do something called line break. This is something I'll explain you. This is syntax in HTML. It's called line break. That means you give a line break after this, something like a typewriter what we have, right? Line feed. Now I have done this. Let's say, for example, here as well, just for the sake of it. So if I reload this, I got it back. But that's not what it is. You shouldn't think that it is more difficult or something. So what I can do here, instead of this, what I can simply do this. Because what we say HTML is a processed data with the visual effects. HTML plus data is a beautiful data. HTML itself is what? HTML itself is what? Data plus style, right? Data is simple text. So HTML is the simplest here. Data plus style. That is what is HTML. Data plus style. How do I put a style? What do I do? There's something called a header. I'll explain this. Header. That means in the page you can have headings. Like in any Word document, any word processor, we have a header. Header means the section title. It's the title of the section or page where you want to emphasize and show it big. indicate that this is the beginning of a chapter, something like that. Just I'm doing this only, nothing else I've done, right? I go here and open my HTML. You need to refresh it. What happens? So do you see visually it is changed? What is the change visually you see here? What is it? Not header font is different. This is shown in the bigger font. But did I do anything? I did only one thing. I told the browser that this has to be shown in this bigger. So this is called a markup. Hypertext is hypertext in the sense what we are looking at here. In the web URL, hypertext is a way, is a protocol, HTTP protocol. As we have seen here, this is the HTTP protocol. Where is it? Here. HTTP is for hypertext, web application. This is also a browser. This is also a web only. Browser is a tool for a web, right? So hypertext markup language, I have instructed the browser that this needs to be, this is the title of the page. It needs to be shown in a bigger font and bold. So this is a common syntax. Okay. You do H1, closing and ending tag. That means this has to be surrounded. It's more like, a disciplined approach. Say, for example, you open the door to get some item. Once you come back, you close the door. Something like that is a disciplined way of making it. You can't open the door and then come back and leave the door open. You have to close the door. That's a discipline, structure, right? So we do this. Let's assume one more thing. I said HTML, right? I'll do one more thing. I'll save the same thing here. Just next line. I don't do anything. Okay. I'm trying to put it. What I have done? In the names.txt itself, I'm applying the same HTML tags, right? Let's see if it is bringing anything. What happens? It is literally means as what it is considered. It is not prepared. The browser, the client is not making any changes. It is okay. It's a text file. What I've indicated is a .txt. .txt means what we have seen. .txt what we have seen. TXT means. That means unprocessed data. Nothing will be applied. Data as what it is, a vegetable. You get the vegetable, you keep it and store it. That's it. You will not cut, you will not keep it in the fridge, or you don't do anything on it. It's unprocessed data, means unprocessed. Even though you give it, it doesn't make any sense. Let's say, for example, this is as good as a real-time example. Just imagine there is a classroom. A lecturer is running a class. Suddenly the principal comes. What the student will react? They will stand up because they know that the person has come as a principal. Understood? Assume if some other college principal comes, what these people will do? They may not do that because these people don't know who he is. So that kind of, or rather a parent of a student comes. They will not stand up because the presence of that person will not make any big difference to the rest of the students. So the significance of this is not making any sense here. That's the basic of HTML. Very, very basic. The header is a tag. See, definitely we say some specialty, data visualization. We need to cook it, right? When you say biryani, generally it has to be spicy. We say put some more chili. Something like that. It's an understanding. Biryani means biryani masala. If you want to make a biryani, what do we need? Basically biryani masala and curry leaves. All that is a very essential ingredients. Something like that we do it. So that is what is all about HTML. So the client and server, what I said here, now it would make sense to you. Let's say, for example, this PHP, let's go here. This PHP example, do you see something as a bold here? Bold text. How do we make a bold text here? Typically, let's assume, I would say, just add one more line here. The angular brackets bold indicates, B indicates a bold. See, it is bold, but not like this H1, right? It's a bold. What I have done? I have just added a B tag, angular B. B means bold, B for bold, right? Let's say, for example, I'm just adding one more line. I for italics. So you see here, it is italics. There is a style applied. Italics means slanting. There is a style applied based on what you give a hint here, indication. So the browser understand if I read a text in between this, I need to slant it, make it tilted. If I read this between the B tag, I need to display it in bright, bold. So that's the protocol, that's an understanding they both have. So this is how, if you look at it here, in this example, do you see PHP? This is in bold text, a little bold, we understand, right? If you open it, say for example, you see PHP, bold. So everywhere you see some bold text. That means the browser has shown it in bold. Got it? Little high weight. So that's how we do. This is HTML. Just to begin with, what is HTML basically? Any data you show in the browser, we apply some visual effects. Just a summary. Data and the file, when you look at it, data is unprocessed data. The raw data is what it is. With no visual effects, no style, nothing. It will be plain text or raw data. No style at all. It is just like black and white movie. There's no life. The HTML comes to understand that, okay, I can beautify the data. I add some beauty, or like beauty means what? We apply makeup. What do makeups we do? Color coding and all we apply on our face, so we look better. Similarly, and that's why we apply some styling on the data. That is in form of HTML. HTML is a language, hypertext markup language. It's not a programming language. What is a programming? Programming means you can take a condition, you do a looping, you repeat the same thing, etc., etc. You can't do all this. It is just what data it is. You can apply some style on it. That's why they say markup. What is a markup is within the still a little more within the HTML page, the document itself. You can have some links and etc. That's how it is, right? So you apply some visual effects on the data, raw data. Text is what is through HTML, right? So the extension is .html. Generally we say HTML. Sometimes you do .htm as well. It is sufficient. Anything is fine. But preferably use HTML to indicate the full type. Okay, that's an extension. Is it clear? So HTML, client server we have seen HTML. Let's talk a gentle look on CSS. Where does the CSS comes into picture? So HTML, okay, we go here. Probably I would change the order as well. First we'll talk here and then we do. Anything is fine. HTML, CSS. So now let's understand. I have a names.html. So let's say I have another file called dishes.html. So now that we know h1 is a markup tag, right? Dishes. This markup indicates header 1, first level of header. We can understand there is something called h2, h3, h4 also, right? Let's assume subsections that indicates that the topmost level, inner level, like for example a chapter, section, subsection. Exact, you got it in word processor, right? So we can say, let's say for example in South Indian cuisine, say Indian cuisine, inside which you can have South Indian and North Indian. Just say for example, and then you have another thing called Italian cuisine. Next, same level, H1, H2. This is subsection of this Indian. This is another section, right? So let's say in this, so let's say for example, we give some text as well, right? This page contains several dishes based on the different cuisines. A list of dishes based on the cuisines, right? So Indian cuisine or Indian dishes are further categorized into two subcategories. So two subtypes. They are South Indian and North Indian. Just a line of text. Say South Indian, typically what we can add. basically. So idli, dosa, vada, and the meals, coffee. Let's say for example, here North Indian, roti, pani puri. Let's say for example, kulcha, right? And pulao, and then probably tea. Just for or buttermilk. Let's say 5-6 items. And Italian cuisines. Let's say pasta. Just a pasta. That should be fine. Nothing else. So I have these dishes. Obviously, if you open it, just to make more sense, you get it here. Names.text. We have seen it. And names.html. Next item and dishes. Without doing anything, understand this is top level header. This is the next level. These two are the same level. H2, H2. These two are sub to that, under this. That's how we get it. So nothing else as expected, right? But this is obviously for one more, maybe a little bit of HTML. This all comes in the same line. Why? I have not applied a break, line break. That's why it comes. So what I can do here, basically I added say pre tag, basically. Pre means as it is pre-allocated. What is the data it is? Without any extra processing. Show me as what it is. I get this. Just for a simplest take, there is something more I can tell you. The listing, how do you make it? As and when we go, we can take a look at it. So this is as good as this. We have done it. Now, let's say for example, okay, I want to add some color. As I said, you can ask me where is the color? It is only styling. HTML is here for basically, okay, what we can do, we can add some colors also. How can we do? Let's say for example, names.html in header, right? In header tag, what I can do, there is a HTML has got a list of tags like header, bold, italics. There are some color tags. So there is something called font. Color equal to blue. The font indicates what is the style of the font we use. Like Microsoft Word, we use it, right? Let's do this. Font color names. Do you see that? It changed into blue. What I have done now? I just applied a font tag and I said color equal to blue. Now, what should I do? I want the same thing here. Second file also. I apply here. Where is it? Dishes. Okay. What happens? Here also it comes. Perfect. Now, assume I have one more file just for the sake of the discussion. Let's assume names projects.html. Okay. What we do? We already know how to make it styling. How do you do? Font color equal to blue. What is the discipline? Open the door and close the door. That's always an opening tag should have a closing tag. So what we have here in the font? Project, the title of the page. So what we can have subcategories also, but I'm not going to get into that. So what I'll do here, retab. Now I'll type, let's say for example, student management system, ticket booking system. Next is library management system. Vehicle, exactly. We can have as much as vehicle management system. That is enough. Just for the sake of example, right? Etc. We can have it. Obviously, without any further ado, if you can refresh this page, projects.html, it's gonna show me that in projects, right? Now, what happened? We have different HTML files. We have styles. I have not really, we have not touched base a lot of HTML now. Just a basic, very limited HTML we are seeing. So now we understand. We apply a style to the element, a page, right? A style to a text. As of now, understand there is a text. Obviously, what we say this is an element. Element is what is surrounded with a tag Tag is nothing but an element. That's why we call it that, right? So we apply. Now there is a situation. Suddenly, I understand. I somehow like, oh, this blue color is not good. I want to change it to maybe green color. What should I do? I go to the file. Instead of blue, I take green. What happens? You need to refresh the page. But does it change here? Does it change here? What happens? Why? Because it is a change I need to make it in every other page. Understood? This page also I need to make and save it. This page also I need to make and save it. That's the simplest example, right? Now you refresh. Now everything is okay. You understand? Do you like this? Assume in a web application website there are 100 pages. Any style can be changed suddenly. We want to make it big, small. Any changes we would like to make time to time. There's nothing called a fixed requirement. Sometimes you yourself feel like, okay, probably I give blue, I give green, I give red. Depends on the context. See, here itself we must have seen, right? When I was drawing the diagram, I was picking for different colors to differentiate the portion of the text, right? Likewise, suddenly I was looking for something here. First, it came in purple color. Then I chose a different navy blue color. Why? That has not been used here, so I thought it will be a very differentiating color. So the choice can very well vary for the person. Today he likes idli, tomorrow he likes pizza, something like that, right? Now, do you see it is easy? Now, 3 files itself we have to make 3 times. What if there are 10 files? You need to make 10 times. 100 files? 100 times. Because without you make a change in one file, every file, we just made a change in one file. Did it reflect in other files? No. Until otherwise you go and make a change in the corresponding file, that will not reflect, right? Let me tell you. Imagine I reverted back projects, right? Here it happens. There's something called view source. In this browser, you can look at the view source. It exactly contains what is the source we have had. It says green only. In projects, I go to view page source. It shows only blue. So this file is still having blue color only. So until otherwise you go and change it to be a green, whatever color, the change will not be applicable to this file. So that's the difficulty. We have it in pure HTML. And HTML is not meant for styling. HTML has a support. So what we have another way is something called CSS. What is CSS? Cascading style sheets. The word indicates what is that. Forget about cascading. What is a style sheet? Style sheet. A page contains the information about the style to be applied. Right? For example, font color equal to blue for the H1 elements. Where we have seen now, right? Yes or no? For all the H1 tags, we have applied the blue color. So that is how we apply, right? So this is separate sheet, a page that contains. But what is a cascading? The word means it is what you call when you say cascading. Common impact to many files. Cascading in the sense what you say, it goes through many files. Let's say, for example, assume a pack of cards. They are arranged or a cycle list of cycles. If you touch one cycle, if you touch it, every other cycle will fall down. So the style, when you make a change, it will be impacting all the files where this have the style. Exactly. Exactly. That's what it's called, cascading. That is mean continuous effect. Continuous. That's what more or less we can understand it. How do you apply? Right? The HTML refresher, we have seen it. In HTML, there is an element. Any text surrounded by, sorry, I'm just hijacking it. Predefined tags like H1, H2, font, etc. Right? Styling, raw HTML, not styling. When you say styling, there are two types. What is that? One is the sizing, or the way the data gets displayed. What is that? Bold, italics, header, etc. That we have seen it. Bold. We need to have a discipline also. What is the discipline? Open and close. They all follow. That's called something called discipline. What is that? The tag should have a opening and ending tag. Ending. It is called well formatted. It's good to have basic discipline, right? So likewise header, we have seen it. H1, from H1 to H5 or 6, we have 6 different headers. Different levels of header we have, right? You can basically try that, H1, H2, H3, H4, how. So we can quickly try that as well. HTML headers.html, right? So what we can do, HTML headers, right? So this is level 2. Just we can repeat this. So level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6. If I am not wrong, we have 6 levels of headers. So if you want, you can type anything in the middle or simply have it also. As always, what we can do, go back here, refresh this, we get HTML headers. You get this, see? You see the size? Topmost H1, H2, H3. Where is level 3? Oh, I typed it wrongly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you understand, right? Beginning of a page or section, subsection. Depends on which you can give it. If you want to logically organized based on the level or category. Like how we have organized. The best example I have shown dishes. Dishes is the first level. Indian cuisine is the second level, and Italian is the same second level. South Indian, North Indian is the third level. They are the subsections of Indian cuisine. So that's how you should look at the headers, right? So we have seen this header HTML as well. Different types. This is two types. One is the sizing. What is the other type? Bold, italics is sizing, right? Other thing is colors. Can HTML do it? Can do it with the help of font tag. Font tag or element. Also, we have something called span as of now. There are a couple of other elements. Okay, we can do that, but not really meant for it. HTML. Why? What is the job of HTML? It can do, but what happens is tedious, or what you call overheads, challenges. What we have seen. If there are many pages that needs any change in this, in the color coding, the change has to be applied in all the pages for it to take effect. You have seen the example, H1 color, correct? So this is the disadvantage. And HTML is not really meant for the coloring. Though you could do, but it's mostly on the way style board, etc. Right? But it is also possible. But there is a challenge. We have overhead. That is why what we have is CSS, cascading style sheet. How do you apply this? How do you make the CSS in picture? So, in every HTML page, okay, we need to now take a look at the HTML structure. Basically, let's take a look at HTML structure. How does a proper HTML page look like? We have not seen the proper HTML page. HTML page or structure. How does it look like? HTML has a predefined structure. HTML page has a predefined structure, more like a grammar. Similar to the punctuations in the grammar of a language. It's just something like this, a syntax, right? It indicates basic. So how does a structure look like? This is how it looks. At first we have HTML tag. HTML itself is a tag. We said there's a predefined tags, right? When we say predefined tags. The predefined means you cannot define your own tag. The tags H1, H2, etc. are already defined. Browser will understand. You cannot make a tag called. That means the tags are already defined and has a common meaning. These tags. You cannot have a tag named, let's say for example, person or even Raghavan or say PHP, just for example. We cannot have it. Even if you have it, what happens? It doesn't know how to interpret it. Let's say for example, go to the names.html. We have it here, right? Let's assume PHP. This is a text inside the PHP tagger element, right? Let's open and close it. PHP. What happens? Let's take a look. Names.html. It doesn't understand what it is. PHP means it's an element. It understands. It's an element, but there is nothing to be done for it, right? You don't get a special treatment. Well, let's look at it, right? View page source. See, here you see that in the source, but when it comes to visual, it doesn't know the browser. How should it treat? How should it handle? The PHP does not make any sense. It is a custom tag. This is a predefined tag. BR. Okay, BR also I have seen line break, right? We have seen here. Let's close it shortly, right? BR. Okay, but this is like it doesn't know what it happens, right? So this is a basic is a HTML tag, HTML element, opening and closing. Why? Discipline. Inside the HTML, bare minimum, we have two: header, one, body. What does it indicate? Header is nothing but a topmost common information about the page. What is this page all about? Let's say for example, you look at a person, you understand. Let's say for example, there is a friend of yours come to your house. You will understand he is your friend, he is your childhood friend, or he is your relative, and you know him for so many times. That's all everything you know. The body is nothing but what is the purpose he is here for, what actually data he brings in. So bare minimum we have two sections. This is a subsection, right? Head and body. Body is actual data you show. Head is something you don't display it, but you will inform what is the type of the data it contains to the browser. Browser is a tool that is going to handle the HTML file. So you inform to the browser. So inside this, let's say for example, there is something called title. Okay, let's say for example, HTML structure. Now it doesn't come here. I need to make it into the file. Like let's assume I put one more. So let's say for example, HTML structure.html, right? I put this. Assume I don't have this. Okay, let's go here. Do you see any title here? Names, everything, names.html, so it is there, right? Let's assume I refresh this page, HTML structure. You see HTML structure.html, nothing is there, right? So what I'm gonna do here, example of HTML structure, right? I come here and refresh it. You see the title. Of course I can make some content. Let's say inside the body, why nothing is displayed? Body is empty. So here I put my H1 tag, right? Here I put, maybe I can put the same thing, HTML structure. HTML structure of a structure of HTML page. So let's say for this page defines the structure of HTML page, just a content. Now I go and refresh. I get this. You know now H1. You know what the text. It's a basic text. But now you look at it. Example you show here. If you click on it, you see this here. It's a file name. If you don't have a title, it shows a file name. Let's assume. We can also look at one more thing. Assume this is HTML comment. This means the content will not be displayed. I refresh it now. What happens? HTML structure.html. But if you do the view source, it is commented out. This means comments. This means comment. Comment in the sense it is only for you, not for the browser. You don't want this to be executed, so it doesn't make any sense. You have it, but you don't show it, right? So in HTML basics also, typically we see an element like what does a style element? What you see? Element we see here, and we also see a comment. Starts with and ends with. Everything should have opening and closing. So any text in between will not be displayed in the browser. Understood? So we have seen the HTML comment also. Little bit, I'm just expanding it now so it makes sense, right? I don't need to keep deleting, correct? HTML structure. I commented it out. Now you understand title. So this shows about the title of the page, something about the page, right? Now you remove this. I can even do this here. Comment that will not be displayed in the browser. That's all. We'll come back here, refresh it, title changed. Title, when you hover the mouse, you see that here. This will be useful for you to understand what is the page all about. And here you don't see the content. If you go refresh it, this has come here, right? The comment is there in the source, but not in the actual content. Got it? Now, what are we talking about? So structure of HTML, body we have seen, right? How do you apply the style? That's where we branched out here. Inside the title, head section, there is something called a style. Okay, there are 2-3 ways we can apply a style. Basically, I can tell you that. Okay, probably I should have tell you this. Assume within the page itself, maybe I'll have to give a break here. Assume there is a page. Let's say, for example, here itself, HTML structure. There are two stylings, right? CSS. So what we can do, the styling itself, HTML styling itself, two kinds of style we can do. Let's say, for example, here we say H2 header. And then we have body, just for example, right? Header portion of the page is mentioned in the head and head tags, right, in between. That's what we mentioned, nothing else, right? Likewise, I copy paste this line and say that body portion of the page is mentioned between the body and body. What we say, the head is a sub or child element of the parent HTML element. We understand this, right? We have seen it in the previous head structure itself. Head contains this title, right? So what we do, we copy paste this here, same. Of course, we understand what we can do now. A line break. This is a self-closing tag. You don't need to put this way. Let's say, for example, this is self-closing. Both of them same. Nothing is there in between, so we can close this. This is self-closing tag. Okay. Now, let's refresh this. Let's assume structure of the HTML page. We have this header. Now assume I want to change the color of this H2. What can I do? Basically, first step, here itself, font color equal to, let's say for example, green. I close this font here between the text, surrounding the text, right? Same way I close this as well. Font. And the order does matter. Nesting does matter. You get it? Why H2? Because let's correct it, right? Font color green, body H2. Font green. Why everything displayed H2, font color green. Why everything is displayed? This H2. This is a normal text only, right? What happened? Font color green. Closing tag. I missed the closing tag. So that means this is how you get the error. So you get both of them. Now I want to change it to blue. You know the reason. What should I do? I change it in both the places. Instead, the styling itself differs 3 types of styling. Three types. One is direct style on the text. What we have done through the font tag with color attribute, right? That we have done this. Second is what we're gonna see now. I'll tell you what we can do. So instead of changing this in the same page, you have something called style element here. Style and style. This is called inline style. Inside which what you can do, H2 equals, this is the H2 element, you define the color here, color equal to green. This way you remove this, you don't need this. This is inline style, you don't need this. What you can do, you remove this. Now let's open the page. What happened? Nothing different. Why? You get this as a color, right? What I can do now, you tell me if I want to change it to blue or maroon. One place change. Save the page, refresh, change. You understand? Within this page, I have this. What if I have another page? Will that affect? I have next page, page 2. Will that affect H2? That is why we have a next level is cascading style sheet. This is also a style sheet, cascading style. Within the page, it cascades, right? So this is inline style or page level inline style applied through the style tag inside the where head. Second, we have seen the difference. But does it affect here? Let's say, for example, I change it to header. Okay, let's assume I put the HTML header itself. I put this here. Let's say, for example, font color equal to green. I go to HTML headers. I know for sure for this alone I change the color. I change this here. Does it apply here? It is, because it's a separate page. That style applies for that page only, not for all the pages. That is why we have a third level. That is the external style sheet. You get the concept of CSS, right? This is cascading style sheet. You have these colors defined in a common place. Wherever the element is there, the style will be applied. That's the style, cascading style sheet. So if it is external, what do you say? External style sheet. In every HTML page, style can be applied on 3 ways, 3 places. Exactly what we have seen. Here itself we have seen external style sheet is a separate .css file is stored and referred in the required HTML pages. It is something like, let's say for example, all of us, we want everybody to be vaccinated with mask. What do? We give a copy to everybody. Or let's say for example, this is something like a separate, what we have inside, right? This is your own mask. You have it for you. This is something like water for a classroom. So all the people in the class will have access to water. This one is something like a air. It is common. Everybody can breathe, right? So the example, what do you call sanity mask, or what do you say, mask for the COVID. Everybody owns it. One per person, right? This is example. Water can in a classroom is accessible by all the students in the class, in the room, right? This is like air, common to all the people who can breathe, basically, right? Something like an example. So I just copy paste this here. CSS basic, we do this, right? Clear? How do you do the .css? That's the last portion, right? Nothing. What we do here, this structure, what you have seen, right? You save it as a .css file. Let's say style.css. That's all. You keep it outside, but how do you refer it? So let's say, for example, you do this HTML structure. We have it. So we can do this also. Let's assume I go here. I make HTML structure here. You know how to make HTML structure, right? HTML head. There are so many other tags also, right? Body, right? They are all here. If you want, you can give a title. If you want, all these should go here. Where? Part of the body, like parts of a body, right? It is what you want to be displayed. So in this title, you say type equal to text.css, right? Rel equal to style sheet. Rel equal to style sheet. Link, it's not style. Link rel equal to style sheet. Rel means relationship. And we say source equal to, it is in the same directory, right? We give the name of it, style.css. That's all we do. So that means this page has a relationship to a style sheet, which stores it. There's a link to a style sheet. This name is style.css in the same file, same folder, right? Now let's assume I just for an example, I'm saying I give a color to H3. We have H3. Do we have? Okay, assume I remove this for example, for the sake of our discussion, I remove this H2. There's H2. There's a style.css. I have a style here. Now I come back. There is a file. HTML headers. What happened? View source style.css. H2 color maroon, right? But why H2? HTML headers, it is there. Link rel style sheet. Am I doing something? I don't know whether I'm missing something. HTML rel style sheet. Rel style sheet link element. Okay. That's a basic syntax, right? Very basic syntax. A link rel style sheet, href. Oh, not src. My bad. Not src. It is href. It's hyperlink reference. Everywhere we say src generally, it's hyperlink reference. It happens, right? Now let's go here. What happened? There's a common file. I have it. Assume this style is applied in all the pages. You understand the magic here. Cascading style sheet is cascaded. The style, the change in the style gets cascaded across all the pages, right? One more rule here. Basically, assume I bring this here. Font. Let's say, for example, color equal to green. This is something in the programming you need to understand. I apply font green here locally. What might happen? Just a quick check. What might happen? I have a style sheet. The style sheet has a style for H2 color maroon, but I have a local style here as green. What color will it take? Which color it will take? Any guess? It is green or maroon or black. Some new color, totally new color. Combined out of green. Okay, that's a good thing. Neither here nor there. It does not disappoint. No, it takes the local color. Let's go here. HTML headers green. Why? Because you should look at this. This is there in common, but you still have a local color. That means this takes a precedence. If there is nothing, it will go look up here. So that means there is a level of precedence. That is also something we need to understand. There's a level of precedence. It's a global style is applied. For H3, exactly. For let's say assume I add a H3 color. Let's say for example, simply I make H1 color. H1 color equal to navy. That's a little good blue color. Assume this color came navy here, blue color. What happens here? Here H1 we have not given any color. Structure of HTML page. Okay, I have not added. Okay, structure of HTML page. What is that? H1. I have not applied a style over here. I have only added a local color. I have not linked the style sheet here. But rest of them, if you look at it, everywhere I have not linked it. So that is very essential that all the pages has to be linked to the style sheet. Then it will apply. So what I can do basically, but earlier what I have shown is the raw HTML. They don't have the structure at all. You need to have the structure and then link it. You know what the structure looks like. This is how it is. Right? This is the advantage of a cascading style sheet. You understand? What is HTML? Hypertext markup language used to add some display aspects of a text, raw text. Most likely, the styling is two types. One is sizing, other is a styling. The style, color. The color can be added in three ways that we have seen it in this cascading. One is on the inline element. Second thing on the inline style sheet of the page, all the elements on the same page. Third is the external style sheet where we have, how do we apply this external style sheet? Here we have this example. Inside the head, how do we apply? Inline style sheet. What is it? A list of style applicable to all the matching elements, whichever elements you have styled in the same HTML page, not all the other pages, only within that page, right? Third thing is external style sheet. How do you apply the external style sheet? List of styles applicable to all the matching elements in all the HTML pages, whichever has linked to this style sheet. Otherwise it doesn't, right? Why should I? You don't ask me Only if you ask me, I'll give you it. If you don't ask me, why should I give it? Right? Make sense? So this one is what this structure we have seen. Okay, sorry, this is for this. This is for this. Right? And this is for what we do. HTML structure, not here. Where is the link? HTML headers. Right. We just add this. You can say link of CSS and HTML page or external style sheet. Right? So here we add this, not this. We don't need this. Inside we add this. What happened? Okay, inside head. So okay, my bad. Not this. Here it is. We don't need a style element. Just apply the link tag. That's all. Okay. So this is a style sheet. So I've seen HTMLs. What is a web development, client and server architecture? Where is a so now you understand here basically in the page you see different colors. Now you understand where the colors are coming from, right? There is a this all we'll see later. How do we style the structure of a page? So this is a blue color. This is a black color. You see that here. We can see links little later on the HTML. If you click on view source any page, you can very well see that HTML. So many streets. There is a style sheet here. Where is it? Title. They have it. Link rel style sheet. So many style sheet they apply, right? Rel style sheet. So they have applied some different style sheet. We can apply more than one also. So there is a file here. You see a lot of structures. Now kind of it makes sense to you. I have not told you href and all, but see here, PHP is a language, right? H3. You understand H3 means what? Download. H3 is third level header, right? H3, right? So you basically try to make sense, right? How H2. H2. So this is how the styling of a text, without which it doesn't make sense, right? You now what do you understand? Okay, there is a page. Just by looking at it, what you can say? Okay, on top there is a menu. Right side some other menus within the page. In this major area, I have a text. There is some sections being highlighted. You have a meaningful way to understand the content. That is why HTML helps. For the styling, as we have understand, as we have just studied and looked at it now, typically people go with the external style sheet, cascading style sheet, because the same style, once you make a common change, it will be applicable across all the pages. Otherwise, a website will have thousands of pages. You need to make the changes in all the 1000 pages, which is a waste of time. Got it? So that's the basic of web application, client-server architecture, HTML and CSS. In the next class, we will see, again, we will have one more class just to talk about the JS and PHP and MySQL, a taste of it. And then gradually what we can do, the web development project student management system, what we can do, we'll start building step by step what a student will contain, how it should look like. So this is going to be a mixture of a course where we'll learn, as of now, like I've told you, HTML, CSS and juggled. What do we need to know? On demand basis, we will learn what is what. And then we will apply that, make it as common, whatever you have learned, we will apply, make a workable product. So it will be a learning come practice. It's going to be that way. Okay, good. Thank you. I'll just stop the recording.